Okay, so one of the key themes that I had discussed last week in terms of where we're going to likely see growth in AI in 2025, I've been talking about the networking situation. Specifically, an analogy, I was talking with someone yesterday about data centers and the need for a lot more spending in the networking side. And they said it's kind of like with F1 racing. You might have a great engine, but if you don't have a suspension and all the other pieces, you're not going to have the best car at the track. And what we're looking at is, if we think of the GPU from NVIDIA as the engine, that's been the primary area where we've seen tons of investment. But we're going to need to see all of the surrounding areas in the data center see a lot more investment if we want to get to these data centers that we've been talking about today that are currently being planned for, that are costing up to $100 billion. And one of the key areas is networking, because right now these GPUs and data centers, they might have low utilizations. They're not being used the majority of the time. One of the best ways to get improving utilization is to spend more money on advanced networking technology. Now, a lot of these stocks too, there's a little bit of built-in negativity towards them because traditionally there hasn't been a new reason to really invest in this market, right? You're not seeing the kinds of ROI you're going to see with a massive GPU data center. So we're trying to invest in front of the inflection point of really high spend in this market and get leaders. So the stock I want to talk about today, that's Credo, and it's CRDO. Now, David, I'm not going to, excite anyone too much when I say that their primary market is active electronic cabling.
Finally, I've been looking for a play in that market.
And I doubt I'll excite other people saying that they have other growing businesses such as optical digital signal processors. But here's the key point. We need to move to faster port speeds that are able to have a higher, throughput on data. Right now, most of their sales are in 100G, 200G. What we need for these huge AI data centers where you have 100,000 or more connected GPUs, we need to start moving to 800G and beyond. It's always an out there promise where you don't know exactly where this revenue is going to hit an inflection point. But the belief is that Credo is going to start seeing some big acceleration in the back half of 2025. And what we could effectively see is a more than doubling of their AI revenue in that period. As we mentioned, it starts off small, and as it becomes a larger portion of business growing at that rates, it begins swelling growth rates. So again, this is a company, you don't need to be an expert in active electronic cabling. Lord knows I am not. You just need to know the overriding opportunity. And that's what we're going for. We're going to start making bets about basically this AI networking play. And this is just the first. I'm going to start this since this is a small company. This is $5 billion. It's the smallest that we've added to the portfolio so far. I'm going to start it at 1% allocation, which is starting at $5,000. And in the weeks to come, I'm going to continue looking, I should say, for more plays to add in this space, because I think ideally we're going to be at somewhere along 5 to 10 companies, all at 1 to 2% allocations. And we're going to spread out our bets on companies that have basically hit an inflection point in revenue as we make this transition to 800G port speeds and above. So that's the new stock for today. It becomes the fifth stock in the portfolio. But like I said, we're going to continue, exploring this trend, and it's going to be kind of the basis to get us above 10 stocks in the weeks to come.
You mentioned your plan to kind of look for more plays in this space, not to reveal all your secret moves, secret sauce. Give us a taste of what's that process? How are you going to go about? We may have listeners that want to go do it themselves. Where are you starting to look? Is this through it doesn't sound like you're doing a stock screen of, hey, I'm looking for this type of company. So what is the way that you are going about finding these types of companies? Because I'm willing to bet that maybe 1 or 2 people have heard of this company, maybe 0 of our listeners. So where do you stumble upon a Credo, and where are you going to keep looking?
Yeah, with Credo, so I'm looking places like teardowns of NVIDIA's Blackwell servers, and I want to see what companies are seeing the most benefits from them. It's interesting because Credo, actually, they would like NVIDIA as a customer. It would be a huge catalyst. I don't believe NVIDIA is a current customer of them. I'm also looking at things like what hyperscalers, what companies are saying that they're engaged with hyperscalers, which once again is just the biggest cloud companies like Microsoft, Google, who's saying that they have design wins with those companies that they're believing will scale, because my bet is it is going to scale on time, and it's going to scale at a larger rate than you would expect. A company that I've been buying call options on my personal portfolio, when valuation dependent, is named Applied Optoelectronics, and that's AAOI. I believe I've talked about them. I've definitely written about them on 24/7 Wall Street. And they have a relationship with Microsoft, and I don't necessarily know what competitive advantage they have in any kind of really in-depth perspective, but I appreciate their industry and their relationships that they have. So that's a company I probably would have been comfortable adding them, but they're up like 100% a month. So I'm going to continue looking through other alternatives and options. So it really is. I find companies. I go through their 10Ks. I look for competitors. I look for related companies. I read research from different publications I subscribe to, and I try and arrive at a group. And I also, we have to have the humbleness that it's not necessarily in a theme like this that we're going to pick out the dominant winner. It's that we're betting on the overall idea, and we're going to try and be as effective as possible spreading our bets. So it's really, sweetener to our overall returns in the AI space.
Sounds great. And again, like you said, that's the purpose of this portfolio, to try to give listeners some real life guidance, some real life perspective on how big is this company. And I think some people might be like, oh, it's only a 1% position. I think that's very informative about how we're going to start building the portfolio when you talk about finding more companies in this space. I think that's really actionable